Welcome back to the channel. It's another Champions League night. Can Celtic do any better than they did in Germany? That is the question. So, we're on the cusp of another European away Champions League night. I know you're all any Celtic fans watching this are probably shaking with terror at the thought of another away night in Europe without Cameron Carter-Vickers, which is a huge blow to the team. I think everybody was hoping that he would be back. He's not. And I'm hoping that the main reason for that is that they're maybe thinking we've got a lot of games coming up and they don't want to just risk him if it's too early. He's obviously been training. I think a lot of fans hoped he'd be back in time. He's not going to be. What do we think of it tonight, Paul? How do we feel like he's going to go?
I mean, let's be realistic. Celtic away from home in Europe's not good. So, I would love us to go there. I think first and foremost, what I would say is that I am looking for a positive performance.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm just kind of like forget the result at the moment because our performances away from home in Europe have not been good enough. So if we can just focus on going out and performing, then we might get a positive result, but I don't see it.
Well, the thing is there's been a lot of talk about our style of play and if Rodgers will be more pragmatic, if you like, going into the game. Obviously, he spoke in the press conference about how he does not have any intention of changing his approach in that way. My thing is that when we have this kind of discussion, what's important to understand is when we have the ball and we play attacking football, nobody's asking for the style of play that we play when we have the ball to change. Because we play good football when we have the ball. What we're saying is how we set up off the ball. That's what we're talking about. You can't have two of your three midfielders being as high up as Mida and Kuhn. Do you know what I mean? But the thing is as well, like, you don't see last night, you didn't see Real Madrid do that. They didn't go full gun ho when they don't have the ball. So it's not about being inherently more negative, but it's about accepting the fact that you're going to have less of the ball than you will have against every team in the Scottish League. So how are you going to set up for that? Because you can't constantly press these teams in their own half and not expect to get beat on the press. So when we talk about Rodgers being more pragmatic, I don't want the style of football when we have the ball to change, but it's about being a bit more street smart and going, well, what do we need to do here to get a result? You know, there needs to be that element of, we talked a lot about in the Dortmund game, that naivety, that kind of way of how everyone pressed at the same time. We left so much space in between the midfield and defence, and it's just about the players and Rodgers being more smart about it. And I think that even though Rodgers is coming out saying he wants to play the same way, I think that that's kind of a defiant, what I'm hoping it is a defiant publicity stunt, more than what the reality is that they will see.
Yeah, more political than anything else.
Yeah, because the thing is, if he goes out and says that, tweaks his approach and we get a result tonight, he looks like a genius, right? But if he comes out and says he's going to change his approach, then we get beat, everyone's going to say, oh well. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things where I think that I'm hoping that what he's saying to the media politically is different to what he's saying in the dressing room. And because he must know that he can't get beat the same way. Like, you can't get beat that way back to back. Do you know what I mean? So he has to know that. And his ego's too big to allow himself to want us to get beat 7-1 again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's true. And I totally agree with you. I think that it's naive for the front three to press a back two. You know what I mean? And then as soon as, like, and we are not as good as Man City or, you know, that's just a fact, or Liverpool or any other of these teams that do that, like, super high press. And so it's very hard to play through Man City. Mm-hmm. So Guardiola gets his teams to press like that because he knows it's hard to play through them. But, you know, let's take Borussia Dortmund. They found it very easy to play through us. So you need to tighten up. There can't be any other way of doing it. And what you were saying is that we're not looking for you to change your style of play, but off the ball, what we are looking for is a wee bit more poise and calmness, and know this, like, you know, you're looking at Maida and Kyogo and Kuhn pressing a back two or a back three, and you're looking and Hatate's right behind him and McGregor's right behind him, and the gap between McGregor and Scales is like half of the football pitch.
I mean, it's you're never going to win a game of football doing that at that level.
That's not a style of play. That's bad football.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's nothing to do with your style of play. That's just bad. It's completely bad tactics and potentially bad decisions from the players as well. You know, you don't necessarily know all the ins and outs, but there's a lot. One of the other problems as well, though, is one of the biggest differences between Ange Postecoglou and Rodgers, because everyone likes to kind of put the experiences of Rodgers and Postecoglou in Europe in the same bracket. I don't really see them in the same for a couple of reasons. One is that when we have the ball, Rodgers' MO is to, like, possession-wise, is you start slow and you build up. They start slow and you build up. Andrews always get it forward quick as soon as you can and go forward. And I think that aggressive style of going forward was a bit more suited to European football than Rodgers' kind of slow tempo and then build up. Because what tends to happen is, and it happened against Dortmund a lot, is we slow the ball down at the back, teams start to press us, we're not good enough to get out of their press, they win the ball back and they score. That happened a lot against Dortmund.
Happened like 3 or 4 times.
And that's even without outside the goals as well. Whereas I think with Ange, there was a couple of really impressive performances for him in Europe. We lost 3-0 against Real Madrid. Half time was 0-0. We should have been 1 or 2-0 up at that point. We played really, really well that night, and 3-0 was a harsh scoreline on us because of the tempo, the tempo of which we played. In playing the Scottish Premiership, you can slow it down to an extent and then build up and speed up and go forward, right? In Europe, I think the need to be intense all throughout the team and not slow the game down is so important, because they're not going to play, like Atlanta aren't going to play at a slow tempo. Dortmund aren't going to play at a slow tempo. You can't slow the ball down thinking you're going to beat their press, because you're not going to beat their press 9 times out of 10 because they're a top tier team.
Yeah, I think I think you're right. Very different styles of play. Ange did there was a couple of embarrassing results in Europe, like you're saying, but this is why I was saying at the start, I think the performance is really important.
Yeah.
Because Dortmund, we could have lost 7, 8, 9. You know what I mean? We did lose.
If we had lost 7, that game, if we'd lost 10 in that game, nobody would have been complaining.
Exactly. I mean, the difference between it was like, whatever, you know, it's as embarrassing. I think we kind of need to, like, I think people really do need to forget about Ange.
Yeah.
Move on in a sense. And especially when it comes to the Champions League, completely different team, completely different style of play. Excuse me, people will always compare it. But I know what you're saying. It's like people are putting them in the same bracket and they're not in the same bracket. I feel like Ange get better performances, maybe no better results, but better performances in Europe out of the team.
You could see something building with it.
Yeah,
you could see
absolutely
going that way.
Absolutely. But what I will say is I don't see Atalanta playing quite at the same tempo as what Borussia Dortmund do. I don't think the Italian league is quite as intense and, you know, quite as good up and down the league as the Bundesliga. I think we've got more of a chance tonight to make an impression, put in a good performance. Maybe they'll adapt and they'll be like, just press this team and they'll crumble. Maybe, but I think they'll be a wee bit more defensive. They'll be way more pragmatic, I think. And the worrying thing for me is if they go and try and hit us in the break. We've seen it at the weekend with Aberdeen. Like, there was 10 minutes where they just kept breaking through us. So that would also be a worry. No, just coming up against a high-tempo, high-pressing team and we crumble under that pressure. But a team that can also keep the ball and then hit you in the break, like draw you out. Because based on the Borussia Dortmund game, we will come out, we will get drawn out. And it just, I think it comes down to how well they can bypass our press or hit us on the break. Because I think they'll be a wee bit more defensive than what Dortmund.
No, absolutely, and that's where you kind of hope that the players, like we talk about learning things from games. You had to learn from the Dortmund game and go, right, well, we in the Aberdeen game even where we get beat in we were getting beat, cut open far too easily. Somebody in the team has got to address that. I'm looking at Callum McGregor and going, you need to be looking at this and been talking to your midfield players. Forget, you know what I mean, like to an extent, you can have a game plan of what you're doing with the ball and all that, but see, as a team, as players on the pitch, you have a responsibility to address what's happening. Don't, if we start off tonight and it's not working out and the press isn't working or whatever, you need to adapt as the game's going on. Because if you wait till half time, we're going to be 4-0 down. Do you know what I mean? There needs to be that learning curve of, right, players in the park, change what's happening. You're experienced enough to do it. Likes the Ingles and Atati and McGregor, and can't allow that, whatever the midfield is tonight, can't allow for the same thing to happen. We need to protect the back four more than we have been.
100%. What learnings, what aspects of learning would you like to see from Dortmund be brought into this game?
I think that we, as much as it's hard to think about because it's so few far between, whenever we got Mida one-on-one, he was getting by their fullback. Whenever we got Kuhn one-on-one, he was getting joy. I think we kept playing through the middle. We kept trying to play through the middle, and that's fine when you're playing in the Scottish League because we can cut most teams open. But when you're playing what's likely going to be a low block Italian team away from home, try to play through the middle is not. You're not going to get much joy with that. And you're also, when you play through the middle, you're one pass away for being completely exposed if it doesn't go right. So I think one of the things that I really want to see us do is try to, when we talk about that pragmatic approach, is get the ball down the wing more and get Mida and Kuhn more involved in an attacking sense, and be less risky with the balls through the middle of the park, because I just felt like we kept constantly trying to do that kind of ticky-tacky midfield play.
We were trying to play fast one-touch passes in the shape and the movement and all that sort of stuff, but Dortmund were just on us, man. Like, we couldn't get 2 seconds.
And because they're all so close together, one wrong pass, they're away.
Yeah, absolutely. I would actually like to see us be a wee bit more direct.
Yeah.
I would like to see us try and get Kyogo into the game as much as possible. If the ball's up there with Maida, Kuhn or Kyogo, who are probably our best players, like or some of our best players, if the ball's up there with them, they can't be at our goal. Yeah. They can't be pinned in.
Yeah.
So I would like to see us be a wee bit more direct. I'd like to see maybe a couple of more balls into the channel, balls down the side, wee bit more width, like you're saying. Don't go too narrow. Don't try and cut in, like every time you get the ball cutting inside and playing a ball to Callum McGregor or Paulo Bernardo when he's got 3 players around him. It seems impossible. It happens
so many times, and it's also one of those things where you talk about players in the park. See Kasper Schmeichel, right? He's a very experienced player. See if he's got the ball at his feet, and we've got every defender we have is getting marked, is getting pressed by an Atlanta player. Hit the ball along, man.
Just what are you doing? And he's a great passer, and he can do it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's just like, we're if you're seeing your whole defence getting marked and pressed out, hit it long, because if they get 3 guys on us, it probably means we get less people in the midfield.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I want to see, as basic as this sounds, I want to see a bit more common sense from our players in the park, because the manager can have a style, but see, as a football player with experience that wants to win a game, you need to recognise what's going on here, man.
I agree. So before we go to predictions, and then we'll wrap up, right? Because we need to try and get this up now. What would your starting 11 be?
Well, based on wanting to be a bit more direct, I would be inclined to start Ida tonight. I know I love Kyogo. I think Kyogo is by far and away our best striker, and and look, if he starts tonight and scores, I'll be so happy, right? But like, I think that with the game, there's an argument that with the way Atlanta might play, being a home side and being a bit more aggressive, potentially Kyogo could be more chance to get on the break and stuff like that. But I think Ida's physical presence could maybe hold the ball up for a bit longer, draw in like Samida and Kuhn, have him almost play sort of like in the way that Harry Kane plays for England, drops a bit deeper and bring and Mida and Kuhn make the runs. maybe that's a way of getting Mina and Kuhn more involved in the game by having to either drop deeper and then try to engage their kind of long runs that way. I think that's something that he does a bit better than Kyogo. So maybe that's something to look at. I don't think that Rodgers will do that, but that's maybe something that I would play.
Right.
In terms of the midfield, I think based on Dortmund, Hatate needs to start the game. Engels hasn't. I don't think he played particularly well against Aberdeen, and hasn't really let the world on the fire the past few weeks. But he is 21 years old, and is also it comes back to that human aspect. But I do think that if there's a player that you hope has learned something from Dortmund, it's somebody like Engels. So I'm hoping for a bit of a better performance from him.
Right, so you would start Engels.
I would start Engels. I mean, there's a part of me that actually, see if you were to base this purely in form, McCowan should probably start this game.
I think McCowan should start. I would agree. I'd like to see Ida. Don't think we will. I think he'll start with his strongest front three. He seems to fancy them. So
Yeah.
and he's one of the guys. I would like to see Hatate, McGregor and McCowan.
I think McCowan's played really well.
I think we've got a chance of that. I think we've got a real fucking chance of that happening. And the back four kind of picks itself down to Alistair Johnson, Liam Scales, Trusty and Villa, or I don't know how you say the guy's name.
Yeah.
The Barcelona left back. So I think I would like to see Idan McCowan, and I would like to see Kyogo and Engels. And I mean, what a player to bring off a bench, especially when a team gets tired. Bringing Kyogo off a bench, being able to bring Engels off a bench, Bernardo. We've got a strong bench. I would like to see McCowan. I think that purely based on form, he's been coming off the bench and looking so good. And Engels since Dortmund is seems to have took a bit of confidence hit. So I'm right with you.
I completely agree. The only reason why I didn't mention McGowan is I just don't see it happening.
I think we will. I think that's the one that we'll see. I don't think we'll see either, but I don't know. I think that at the weekend the game kind of changed when McCowan. The intensity definitely changed.
It did.
The intensity changed.
The performances have to mean something.
100%.
It have to mean something.
You can't have a guy. Doesn't matter how much you've paid £11 million for one guy and £1 million for another. If the guy, I said it 2 weeks ago we were talking about this. Play the guy that's in form. You're not doing anybody any favours by putting a guy on the park because of a price tag. Obviously, we don't see training, right? So Engels might be, Ronaldinho in training or whatever. But I think we might see Luke McCowan in a starting 11, but we'll need to wait and see on that.
Well, one of the things about that as well, just to touch on it, is I think that McCowan brings an energy to the team, a work rate for when he comes on, that energy and the work rate that he brings makes a big difference to the team. I mean, you look at how much to the ball we're maybe not going to have tonight. I look at it and go, Hatate's not the most energetic player. You know what I mean? And I think that McCowan has the engine to cover the grass that maybe Hatate can't, and help cover McGregor a bit more. Maybe to where you see McGregor and McCowan being a bit deeper and Hatate being that kind of rather than a 1 and a 2, you do a 2 and a 1. Yeah. Which could be a very good change to make from what happened in Dortmund.
Especially if they decide to go direct, I'd say that's probably a common sense sort of change. So
and it frees up Hatate to kind of do his magic as well.
So what do you think the score's going to be? Let's do predictions and then we'll wrap up.
Well, if they do the team that we just said there and they do the change that midfield a bit to be a bit more pragmatic and go along, I've been terrified of this game, right? But see, for the last couple of days, for some reason, I've had this weird feeling, and I could get pelters for this when we post this, but I've had this weird feeling that we might just get something tonight. I think there's such a feeling that we're just going to get hammered. It would just be so typical Celtic to get some sort of
go out and win 2-0.
You know what I mean? Some sort of dramatic result, and like anything that's not a defeat would be sensational in my book.
Yeah, agreed. So what do you think?
I think one each. I think it could be one each.
Right. Well, I was sort of when I was saying if everything went our way, we might get a positive result. I think that positive result would be a draw. I don't see us winning there, but if I was like not a Celtic fan and putting money on it, I think I would be going Atalanta -2, and I'd be thinking 3-0.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
My heart says one each. My head says 3-0. So at least we've covered both bases. If we do well, we've covered it. If we don't do well, we've been honest. So there you go. But I hope you all enjoyed the game. Let us know what you think the score is going to be, and how you think Celtic will play. What changes do you want to see? Do let us know. And enjoy the game. Until next time, we'll see you again.